Okay, hi everyone. Today I'm going to do a quick painting, but today's challenge is going to be to work with a large brush like this one to create detail. Try this at home if you haven't before. Try working with one of these big brushes, and my recommendation is to use a flat, a bright it's called, where the bristles are cut straight across like this, and one that's in good condition because when it gets wet you can create nice precise lines with it. For example, you can make nice flat lines, but then you can also twist your brush and get these really cool lines and effects as well. So if this is a new concept for you, you might even just try practicing first to get these smaller lines, these thinner lines with one of these flat brushes. I like to use what's called broken color, so that is when you don't mix your colors up all the way, so you get these cool striations in your marks. So you could play around with that. Maybe for this first layer of the painting, use a little extra water in your paint. Now I am working on the slick side of the poster paper. So the paint handles a lot different on this side than it does on the side that's a little more textured and a little more absorbent. As you can see, it's dripping here a little bit more. I really like this effect, but it can be a little unwieldy sometimes. So try this out first, just getting used to the brush and used to the different ways of handling the brush. As long as the paint is still wet, I think what I'll do is take a little of my alcohol and drip it on, and you see it really breaks up on that slick surface, much more than on the absorbent surface. Step 2, mixing up a dark color, and now I'm going to start making the actual portrait. And I'm not going to use any kind of drawing. I'm just going to go for it. And by that I mean I'm not using a drawing with charcoal or pencil or pen or anything. I'm just starting with the paint. That's another thing I like to recommend to people, because sometimes we get so hung up on our drawing. We make a really cool drawing and then we're afraid to put paint on it. So if you feel like that is you and you can relate to that, my recommendation would be to just start making a painting and skip the drawing process. So I'm using a dark color to just establish where the shadows are going to be, where the highlights are going to be. This is what I call the underpainting, and I'm going to layer the lighter colors on top of this. All right. So now I'll mix a lighter color. And you notice I don't use a palette knife to mix my colors, and some of that is just because I'm impatient, and especially with acrylics because they dry so fast. I don't like to use a palette knife because by the time I put my brush down, or I put the knife down and pick up the brush to start painting, the paint is dry. So I mix my paint up as I go with the brush. And then I use the brush to paint. That's why I keep a paper towel or a rag handy at all times so I can wipe off the brush if too much paint is getting on it. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but to just trust the paint and trust that it's forgiving, and if your painting looks weird, you can always fix it. You can always bring it back. I say this a lot. Acrylics are very forgiving. Oils are forgiving too. I do not think that watercolors are as forgiving though. So yeah, like that's really bright red right there. But so a lot of people think when you're doing eyes that the whites of the eye are white, but actually your eyes sit in sockets in your head, and I would say that white is actually more gray. It's not a bright white. Sometimes people go a little too bright with the whites in their eyes. But sometimes I go too bright with it. See, this is the point where I would want to switch to a smaller brush, but I'm going to just keep going here. I'm going to use the corner of this brush here to try to get the nose, the ball of the nose here. So I'm pretty much going back and forth between my lights and my darks. If it's easier for you, you might use two brushes, one for your dark paint, one for your light paint. Again, I just kind of get impatient with switching out my brushes, so I kind of just wipe the brush off as I go, but you could use two brushes right now. Yesterday when I was painting with oils, I would use separate brushes for darks and lights because it's harder to clean the oil paint out of a brush. And if you are painting with a large brush like this, you might need to just, give it up to the fact that maybe you won't get as much detail as you're used to getting. But this is a good way to get you to paint a little bit looser. Sometimes, your painting might turn out a little more stylized than usual, which this one is. So I'm going in and putting in some of these highlights. And kitty cat's here. And just a couple more highlights I'm going to throw around the face here. Oh, I need to do the rest of the braid. Okay, I think I'm done. And there you go. Hope you all enjoyed this tutorial and hope you try this on your own. Stay well.